What is it, do you think, about your game that has people just can't wait to see you on the professional level?
I think it's just the style of basketball that I play. To be honest, I don't get nervous for games because I just know this is fun.
Hello everyone and welcome back to the Clark Update. I hope you're all having an amazing day. Today I've got another exciting and highly interesting video for you, and if you're a true Caitlin Clark fan, you're definitely going to want to watch this one until the very end. Before we get started, let me know you're part of the Clark Update Army by commenting CC 100% below. I love seeing all the amazing Clark fans in the comments. Now, without wasting any more time, let's jump straight into today's video. Caitlin Clark sat at the podium prepared for the customary post-game questions shortly after another incredible performance on the court. But a seasoned reporter made a comment that completely changed the tone of the room, leaving her visibly stunned for the first time in a long time. Why is everyone still discussing what was said? Let's break down the statement that caught Clark off guard. Following the game at Gainbridge Fieldhouse, the Indiana Fever had just defeated the Las Vegas Aces 94-87 in a crucial victory. What many analysts described as one of her best all-around performances as a professional had just unfolded. Clark finished with 28 points on 11 of 18 shooting, including 6 three-pointers, while also recording 12 assists, 5 rebounds, and just 2 turnovers. With only a few weeks remaining in the regular season, the victory moved Indiana into the postseason. Cameras clicked as reporters reviewed their notes, and Clark answered questions with her customary composure and enthusiasm, while the press room hummed with anticipation. Holly Rowe of ESPN had just asked Clark about her developing connection with teammate Aaliyah Boston, particularly how effectively they had worked together in the pick and roll, which had helped Indiana score 18 points in the paint against Las Vegas. Clark smiled and explained that the trust between them was continuing to grow, saying it felt like they were reading each other's thoughts that night because Boston had been patient while Clark continued adjusting to the demands of the professional level. Then Clark noticed Stephen A. Smith seated in the front row. Throughout the press conference, he had remained remarkably quiet, unusual for someone known for his enormous personality and passionate opinions on sports television. "Stephen, go ahead," Clark said, gesturing toward the renowned commentator. Smith slowly got to his feet, setting aside the theatrical energy that had made him one of the most recognizable voices in sports media. As he began speaking, his expression appeared more serious than usual, almost contemplative. The atmosphere in the room changed as his steady voice replaced the usual rhythm of post-game questions. It no longer felt like a routine interview. Something more significant appeared to be unfolding, and everyone in the room seemed to realize it. Smith explained that he had spent more than 3 decades covering major sports, speaking with champions, struggling veterans, rising rookies, and legends whose careers had eventually faded from public memory. But he said there was one question he had been thinking about ever since he began paying closer attention to Clark's journey. The room fell silent. Reporters stopped typing, camera operators leaned forward, and even members of the Fever media staff preparing to wrap up the session seemed to freeze. Smith explained that honesty had always been central to his career. When he believed an athlete was falling short, he did not hesitate to criticize them, and he said he had never apologized for maintaining high standards. But watching Clark handle the pressure, expectations, and transition from college basketball to the professional level had forced him to reconsider some of his earlier judgments. Then Smith paused and delivered the statement that changed the entire atmosphere. He admitted that there was something he should have said much earlier and that, honestly, he owed Clark an apology. He acknowledged that he had been too critical too quickly, had sometimes rushed to judgment, and had occasionally been wrong. According to Smith, Clark had disproved many of the doubts surrounding her and deserved far better than some of the criticism she had received, particularly from him. He then asked how she had managed to maintain her professionalism and grace while dealing with criticism and what she may have viewed as unfair treatment from members of the media. Clark appeared momentarily at a loss for words. The same player who had repeatedly handled difficult questions about her performance, enormous expectations, hostile crowds, and the pressure of becoming one of the most discussed rookies in basketball suddenly seemed genuinely surprised. She opened her mouth as if preparing to respond, then paused. Her hands became still on the podium. Finally, in a quiet voice, she simply said, "Wow." She admitted that she honestly did not know what to say in that moment. The room remained silent as everyone absorbed the unusual exchange unfolding in front of them. Clark eventually gathered herself and explained why the apology meant so much. She acknowledged that the transition had been difficult at times. She had faced constant comparisons with her college statistics, questions about whether she was truly prepared for the WNBA, debates over whether the attention surrounding her was excessive, and doubts about whether she could successfully make the jump from the Big Ten to professional basketball. But instead of allowing that criticism to discourage her, she said it pushed her to work harder. She spent more time in the gym, studied more film, and used the doubts surrounding her as motivation to prove to herself and everyone else that she belonged. Smith then revealed that his apology was not simply a spontaneous comment. He said he had additional statements he needed to make because of remarks he had previously made on television. According to him, he wanted to take responsibility for those comments rather than pretend they had never happened. He began explaining that he had previously questioned whether Clark was overhyped and had suggested that the media, including major sports networks, might have been exaggerating the excitement surrounding her arrival in the WNBA. He had also argued that she needed to earn the spotlight by proving herself over the course of an entire professional season. Now, standing in front of her, he was acknowledging that some of those earlier assumptions had not aged the way he expected. Angel Reese stood in the middle of the paint, arms out, mouth wide open, screaming at her own teammate to clear out and give her room to work. Minutes later, she got exactly what she demanded, a wide-open look at the rim with nobody within 3 feet of her. Then she missed it. Atlanta Dream ultimately lost to the Indiana Fever in overtime, turning that sequence into one of the biggest talking points of the game. What made the moment sting even more was the context. Reese had demanded space, received it, and still could not convert when the opportunity arrived. The miss became more than a simple missed layup. It became a symbol of the frustration surrounding her performance and her role within the Atlanta offense. That moment quickly became the center of a much larger conversation about who Angel Reese is inside the Atlanta locker room. Is she the vocal, demanding leader she wants to be seen as, or has her volume on the floor started to outpace her production when the basketball comes back to her? The question became even louder because the miss came during a game carrying significant rivalry attention, with fans and media already focused heavily on Reese and Caitlin Clark. What might normally have been just another missed shot suddenly became a defining moment because of everything surrounding it. The bigger concern is that this was not simply about one possession. Reports and reactions surrounding Atlanta have created a narrative that teammates may be growing frustrated with constantly having to rearrange themselves around one player who does not always deliver once the ball reaches her hands. That kind of frustration does not develop overnight. It builds possession by possession, missed opportunity by missed opportunity, until eventually something spills into view for everyone watching. Reese's demand for space, followed by an open miss, provided exactly the kind of visual that can fuel that conversation. Fans generally do not mind a player being vocal on the floor. What becomes harder to accept is a player demanding control of a possession, getting exactly what she asked for, and then wasting the opportunity completely. That pattern can quietly influence how teammates view a player during timeout huddles and throughout the game. Cameras appeared to capture moments where teammates exchanged quick glances after possessions went nowhere. Nobody dramatically lost their composure because professional players are trained to maintain their focus, but body language can sometimes communicate frustration more clearly than words ever could. Then came the possession that truly changed the outcome. With the score tied and the clock running down in regulation, Atlanta had the kind of opportunity every team wants in a high-pressure game. The ball found Reese with a clean, uncontested look at the basket, with nobody around her to challenge the shot. This was not a heavily contested attempt or an off-balance desperation shot with defenders closing from every direction. It was an open opportunity near the rim with the entire game hanging in the balance. Reese missed, the rebound remained live, and teammates scrambled for another chance. Neither follow-up attempt connected, regulation ended tied, and Atlanta allowed a golden opportunity to slip away. The frustration on Reese's face afterward said more than words needed to. She stood there for a moment with her eyes closed, seemingly replaying the missed opportunity in her head. Missing a shot like that in front of a packed arena is difficult enough, but doing it with an entire rivalry narrative surrounding the game makes the moment even harder to escape. Her visible frustration was understandable, but it could not change what had already happened. It could not erase the missed opportunity, and it certainly could not undo the overtime period that followed, when Indiana gradually pulled away and finished the game. The moment became even more viral when cameras caught Caitlin Clark walking toward the Fever bench with what appeared to be a smile on her face as she passed Reese. Nobody can say with complete certainty what Clark was reacting to in that exact second, and it would be unfair to automatically assume the reaction was directed at Reese. But context matters. The internet had already spent weeks building this matchup around the Clark-Reese rivalry, and suddenly viewers were presented with two contrasting images, Reese processing a crucial miss while Clark appeared calm and composed. Whether intentional or completely incidental, the camera angle created a visual that social media immediately turned into a storyline. If you only looked at the surface numbers, Reese still had a respectable statistical performance. She recorded her 23rd double-double of the season with 15 points, 14 rebounds, and 6 assists. On paper, those numbers look productive. But the deeper story becomes much different when the context of the game is examined. Reese shot just 5 for 16 from the field and missed her first 6 attempts before halftime. She was held scoreless throughout the fourth quarter, exactly when Atlanta needed its front-court scorer to make an impact. Most importantly, she failed to convert on the 2 possessions that could have ended the game in regulation. That is the difference between an impressive stat line and meaningful production when the outcome is hanging in the balance. Head coach Carl Smemesco attempted to remain diplomatic during the post-game press conference, as coaches typically do after a painful loss. But watching the footage closely, the frustration appeared to remain underneath the surface. Reporters repeatedly returned to the final possession, and each time the coach seemed to choose his words carefully. He referenced the closing minute multiple times, even after the conversation had moved elsewhere. When a coach repeatedly returns to the same sequence without being directly pushed back toward it, it can suggest that the moment is still weighing heavily on him. Teammates also handled the situation exactly as professional players are expected to. Alicia Gray, who scored a career-high 32 points in the loss, publicly defended Reese and emphasized that no single player lost the game. She described it as a collective team effort from beginning to end. That is the appropriate message after a difficult loss, especially when protecting team chemistry matters. But the statement did not necessarily erase what everyone inside the arena had witnessed. Nobody claimed Reese's missed opportunity was irrelevant. Instead, the public response protected a teammate without pretending the final possession had not mattered. The larger issue becomes clearer when looking at Reese's role throughout the season. She has been vocal about wanting to be viewed as a genuine leader, someone who communicates constantly, directs traffic, and holds teammates accountable in real time. There is nothing inherently wrong with that. Great players can be demanding, loud, and intense when the stakes are high. The problem emerges when the production does not consistently match the demands. Reese has acknowledged struggling during stretches of the season, including admitting at halftime of this game that she had started poorly and needed to make adjustments. When a player repeatedly demands space and responsibility but does not consistently convert when that responsibility arrives, trust can gradually become more complicated inside a locker room. None of this means Angel Reese is finished as a player. And it certainly does not erase the impressive rebounding numbers and double-doubles she has accumulated throughout the season. Her overall production still places her among the league's better rebounders, and one difficult overtime loss cannot erase months of work. But perception inside a locker room can shift quickly when a highly visible mistake happens in front of a national audience. If teammates begin feeling that they are constantly sacrificing touches or rearranging the offense for a player who does not consistently reward those sacrifices in the biggest moments, frustration can build quietly before eventually becoming impossible to ignore. For Atlanta, the coaching staff now faces a difficult decision about how crunch time possessions should be distributed going forward. The loss was painful, the game received significant attention, and the rivalry with Indiana and Caitlin Clark is not disappearing anytime soon. Every future meeting will carry another layer of scrutiny. The next time these teams meet, everyone will be watching to see whether Reese responds with improved execution and leadership, or whether the same frustrating pattern appears again under an even brighter spotlight after that. Stephen A. Smith did something that shocked everyone even more than his previous apologies. He took a seat again, reached into his jacket pocket, and pulled out a thin, worn piece of paper that had obviously been folded numerous times. He appeared to have been carrying it around for some time. "There's one more thing, and it's the most important thing I wanted to share today," he told Caitlin in New York. "My daughter is a member of the middle school basketball team. Since your junior year at Iowa, she has been tracking your progress. She once asked me to offer you something if I ever had the opportunity to meet you." Smith then stood up, walked toward the podium, and handed Clark the folded paper. "A few months back, when I was being quite critical of your professional debut, she wrote you a letter. She insisted that if I ever got to meet you in person, I would give it to you. I've been waiting for the appropriate moment while carrying it to games." With curiosity and obvious gratitude, Clark accepted the letter. As though she knew it was more than a simple fan note, she unfolded it carefully. Her expression shifted as she read in silence, curious at first, then surprised, and finally deeply moved. Her eyes widened and then narrowed as she concentrated on certain phrases. She appeared to be on the verge of tears as a warm smile spread across her face. She asked Smith, "Would you mind if I read part of this out loud?" He gave a brief nod. Clark cleared her throat and began reading with a mixture of happiness and intense emotion. "I think this is something everyone should hear," she continued. The crowd erupted in even greater laughter after the letter was read, and some reporters even applauded Mia's candid assessment of her father's basketball beliefs. Smith grinned and admitted that she was definitely not wrong about that last part, which sparked even more laughter and transformed the occasion from a typical sports media event into one of genuine warmth, humor, and connection. What are your thoughts on the surprising statement made by the reporter that left Caitlin Clark stunned? Please share your response in the comments area, and remember to subscribe and like.